Broussard. Nice to see you again, Chris.
What's up, my man? Great to be here as always.
Let's talk about the Pelicans, shall we? It appears to me this team has 3 problems on their hands, Chris Broussard. I'm going to tell you what the 3 problems are. Number 1, slow down the Golden State Warriors, winners of 2 of the last 3 titles. Number 2, what to do about Boogie Cousins, the team's supposed second star.
What's number 3 going to be?
Will the stadium ever get a vegan menu?
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because I was like, the first 2 are the obvious ones.
Right?
What's the 3rd one going to be?
Vegan menu. All right, let's get back to Cousins. I feel like you don't want to talk vegan. All right, that's cool. Reports are New Orleans is currently considering not giving Boogie a max contract this offseason. So, Chris, we talked about this the other day a little bit. Are the Pelicans better off without Boogie Cousins? Are they playing well now because of momentum and the excitement and all of it, or is it because this is actually a better team without him in the lineup?
I think they're a better team without him, especially in today's NBA. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Their record is better. They're 21-13 this season without Boogie, 27-21 with him. If they had continued to play at that pace and Boogie stayed healthy, they would miss the playoffs. They would have missed the playoffs. You know, last year they were 7-10 with him. And that 27-21 record includes winning 8 of their last 9 with him. So and before that, they were way worse than that.
And the 21-13 without him doesn't include the playoffs. So now
exactly.
they're 25-13
against a very good team, the 3 seed. If the record without him, not even including the 4-0 sweep in the playoffs, they would have been the 3rd seed. They were on a 50-win pace. So they play at a faster pace when he's not there. Their defense is better when he's not there. I don't think Boogie, as much as his numbers look all gaudy and great, I don't think he plays winning basketball. He takes 6 3-pointers a game. Why? You're a 35% three-point shooter, and you're taking 6 3-pointers a game, and you're 6'11", 270, and nobody could stop you on the post? Why are you taking 6 3-pointers? Klay Thompson takes 7. You taking 6. You know, the ball doesn't move. We don't run as much. You don't pass as much. I know he gets his assists, but not to mention the injury. I mean, you know, the Achilles is arguably the worst injury in basketball. Hard to come back from. I don't know what he's going to be like when he gets back. Now, he's an asset. I get that. I would hate to just let him walk.
Well, that's the thing. That I can make the argument that because we never saw Boogie with the addition of Mirotic. Mirotic has been really good. So how much of them being better has been Mirotic? How much has been that Anthony Davis played his best stretch of his career? But was he playing his best stretch because Boogie wasn't there? And Anthony Davis at the 5. You can also make the argument that if you stagger their minutes properly. Now, it's a tough coaching job for Alvin Gentry because you're going to ask him to play one style with Boogie on the court, one style with Boogie off the court. We've seen some of the better coaches do it, but to where they're playing only like 20 minutes a game together. Harden and Chris Paul.
Stagger their minutes.
They were playing 26 together. I'm talking, you know what I mean, to where it's even more a greater discrepancy. But even if you buy into the idea, which I might, you know what, it's not about Mirotic. It's not about they're just better without him. I think you still have to consider the Blake Griffin option, which is sign him to an extension and play 30 games, see how healthy he looks, see how good they are, and then if you feel like you were better without him, you can get something for him. You will be able to, just like Blake, he had just signed 5 years, $171 million. The Clippers signed him to that before the trade deadline. The first year of that extension, they get back Tobias Harris, a good player, and a first-round pick. That's really valuable. Whether or not you think the Pelicans are better with him or without him, I still think you have to try to re-sign him because
at max money.
Even at max money, I think he's a triple asset. I think there's enough desperate teams in the NBA that assuming he is not a shell of his former self with coming back from the Achilles. If he's just 80% of what he was at max money, you can still get a first-round pick and expiring contracts for him. So I think you've got to bring him back in that regard.
Yeah, I would be concerned about signing him to a max deal. And the reason why is not only the Achilles, but DeMarcus Cousins, his overall attitude around the league, they know about this, Nick. So how much of an asset he is, like how much he's going to be able to fetch if you bring him back, I believe that's
a question.
That's a huge question. And you know, what does it limit you from a roster standpoint? Because they need several role players. You talked about them, this being the least depth of any of the playoff teams, especially of the teams that have advanced. I mean, their lineup is thinner. They rely on their starters more than any other team in the playoffs. But the sidebar to that is, what does the Brow think? What does the Brow
And Rondo, too.
Like, because I believe that will weigh heavily. You know, do they grant themselves, you know, some cachet with the Brow because the Brow wants DeMarcus to come back. And I believe that part to be true. So I believe that because of the Brow, that's going to pull on him. But I wouldn't sign him to a max deal.
And the thing is, if you don't sign him to a max deal, he's not going to be happy. I don't believe. Well, no, that's a problem. That you laughing, but that's a problem. I mean, that has been his problem throughout his career, is in the locker room, his attitude. I think he's been better. He's definitely been better in New Orleans.
This is the most comfortable he's been in New Orleans since he left Kentucky.
And if he feels slighted because you didn't give me the max, then he could be a problem and take the whole thing down.
Well, I think the max contract part of this is interesting because when we talk about how he's viewed throughout the league and what the perception is and the optimism, how much of an asset would he be? We're going to get a window into that when we see who else offers him a max deal. Who else?
I think Dallas will.
Okay, so
I don't know, the Lakers.
So that's
I wouldn't, but
that's
they
kind
might.
of. I think multiple teams will offer him a max deal, which to me speaks to the fact that if you bring him back again, assuming he doesn't look like a shell of himself, assuming the health is decent, those teams will still be in the market for him at the deadline.
Not if you give him a max deal and his Achilles is not not a shell of himself, just less. He has less quickness. He has less lift in the paint. Like, it's just less. So then that asset, now you become stuck with them.
When has he ever shown he can lift the team?
Well, let me ask you this. The teams he had in Sacramento, could anyone have lifted them?
Yeah.
You really, aside from
greater players could have lifted.
I think two guys in the league could have gotten those Sacramento teams to the playoffs.
They could have made them decent. I mean, they were horrible.
Now that's fair, but like that team around him in Sacramento and that management in Sacramento was disastrous.
He was in a bad situation. I'll give you that. I thought what I think is ideal. Zach Lowe, great NBA writer for ESPN.com, he made a great. He said send him to Washington, or he proposed this for Marcin Gortat, Kelly Oubre, and Otto Porter.
Well, if
I think that because he's good friends with John Wall. Washington, if they lose this round or even the next round, they got to do something.
Yes,
I would give it a try if I'm Washington.
And then if you're New Orleans, you have
got shooting.
Well, you have
wings.
more depth. Because that's the other thing about just letting him walk that the audience should know. Because New Orleans has not done a great job with their cap situation. Even letting Boogie walk doesn't open up a ton of cap space. You'll have the mid-level exception, and that's about it.
But it does put you in the luxury tax.
Right. Well, it makes you avoid the luxury tax. But the idea that, okay, if there's $30 million we're going to give Boogie. If we don't give it to him, we can sign $30 million worth of players. They can't do it. So if they're going to get good players, a deeper roster, even without Boogie, it would almost have to be a sign and trade or a trade because right now they are locked in through 2020 essentially to the team they have.
All right, Chris, stick around. We'll see you a little later in the show. Coming up, why haven't the Cleveland Browns made up their mind about who they're taking at #1? Next, first things first.